Mike Pachelli here. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be talking about the Beatles recording of Dr. Robert that they did on April 17th and 19th of 1966. The song was written early in 1966, mostly by John at his Kenwood home, and Paul helped out with the bridge. It has some unusual Lennon songwriting characteristics in that the verses are 18 measures long, and the verse is in the key of A, but the bridge is in the key of B. It's actually the first Beatles song where there's no doubt they're singing about a drug dealer. And Lennon's boyhood friend Pete Shotton has said that John was thrilled that millions of record buyers would be innocently singing along. About the song, John himself has said, "It was about myself. I was the one that carried all the pills on tour and always have done. Well, in the early days. Later on, the roadies did it, and we just kept them in our pockets loose in case of trouble." Paul said the song was about a New York doctor, Dr. Robert Freeman. We'd hear people say, "You can get anything off him, any pills you want." It was a big racket. The song was a joke about this fellow who cured everyone of everything with all these pills and tranquilizers. He just kept New York high. So they're at EMI Studio 2 on April 17th with the usual lineup, John and George on electric guitar, Paul on bass, and Ringo on drums. Now the rhythm guitar part of the song is often misunderstood as to be just played by John, but as you'll see, it's a combination of John's rhythm and George's single note lines that make the riff of Dr. Robert just so ingenious. They do 7 takes, take 7 is the best, and the song was initially 2 minutes and 56 seconds long with a jam at the end, but they ended up cutting 43 seconds off the song to make it a final 2:13. They do overdubs with John on harmonium, which is a keyboard part that they used on the kind of middle celestial choral part. George plays some great lead guitar fills, and George also overdubbed maracas. Paul did a piano part, but they ended up cutting it from the mix. Now they're back in the studio on April 19th, and that's where they do the vocals. The Beatles had usually double-tracked their vocals, which means they had to sing exactly the same thing twice to get a big full sound. But engineer Ken Townsend came up with something called ADT, which stands for artificial double tracking. And it's a way to take the original vocal and run it through another machine and back and delay it about 40-50 milliseconds to create the sound of two people singing at the same time. So artificial double tracking. Easy to do today, which I'll do in my Sound Alike by just recording the vocal, duplicating that vocal, putting it on another track, and just shifting it 40 or 50 milliseconds. Let's see. They never performed the song live, and it was released on a Capitol album on June 20th called Yesterday and Today, and then on the Revolver album, which was released August 5th, 1966. So I think that's the backstory. Let's get started. John Lennon is playing his Epiphone Casino on Dr. Robert, and in those days the Beatles were using Fender Showman amps in the studio along with a Vox hybrid known as the 7120. So in order to simulate the sound, I'm using a 67 Deluxe Reverb, and with a Universal Audio Aux, I'm simulating the 7120, and I'm trying to blend them together to try to get the tone. It's a very easy part John plays. For the most part, it's based on an A7 chord, and then kind of suspending it. So the sound you want is on the A7 chord, you want the G and you want the C sharp to an A and a D. But there's a hammer-on beforehand, and the hammer-on mostly is from D to E with a G. And then, of course, John doesn't play it that way. He's playing a full A7 chord, but you very rarely hear the 6th string. Most of the time you're hearing the hammer on. And he's probably doing it with his 3rd finger. He's probably going. I like to use my pinky whenever I can, so I'm going to probably use my pinky. And it's a good idea to pick the G string and the D string up so you don't get the B string or the E string. When it goes down to the F sharp on the first, the end of 4, the measure before, you'll hear a low E to an F sharp 7th. When he gets to the E7, he plays like an E7, then to an E suspended. Yeah. Back to the F sharp 7th, and then all the way up to a B. Same kind of form. And that's what he plays. That's the song. So a verse very slowly would sound like. Played a little sloppy, but I think you got the idea. Let's do it up to tempo one time just for fun. Help me out, Ringo. You're not that fast. On the verse. 1, 2, 3. And that's it. The only difference is at the very ending, after you play, it's 3 verses, I believe, and 2 bridges. It's a little shorter. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. How many measures is that? 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 10 measures of A until you go to the F sharp. And then it's probably a fade out on the B, but what I hear is John is playing like. So from that last F sharp 7th would be. And that's going into the fade. Charts and tabs at MikePachelli.com. I appreciate your support by downloading those, and that way you'll see John's part ever so clearly. George Harrison is playing his Gibson SG on Dr. Robert, and I'm guessing dollars to donuts back in like 1965 and early 66. George was listening to a lot of funk, where the rhythm guitar player, probably playing a Stratocaster, used to play parts like if it was in the key of A, they'd play from the 7th of A, which is G, to the root of A. Parts that, old funk parts that go. Those kind of parts. But George simplifies it to make a part similar to that just works so perfectly hand in hand with John's rhythm track. And what George is doing is he's playing on the and of 4, and then he hammers on to beat 3. On the first measure of each chord, he just plays on 1 and 3. So in the song, on the intro, he plays, if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's what he does, the same basic pattern through the whole song. When it changes to F sharp, of course, instead of a G to an A, it'd be an E to an F sharp. When he goes to the E, he doesn't play 7, he just goes F sharp up to B. So you want to get the 7th of the chord on the and of 4, and then the root of the chord that you're playing on beat 3. So again, at the very beginning would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2. Got it? Let me play it with Ringo in tempo. Hopefully I can just read the chart and not get lost without hearing the lyrics, but George's part would sound like this. 2, 3, 4. And that's it. The only difference is that after the second bridge, where it's 10 measures long, they don't go to E. So George would just play A to F sharp, and then again it's fading out, and it sounds like he just plays maybe on the last thing you hear on the B. So that last ending, I'll play the last eight measures would be like this. Again, charts and tabs at MikePachelli.com. I appreciate your consideration in downloading those to help support this work. But if you do download the chart, you'll probably see it even clearer than I just explained. George Harrison does some really nice, tasty fills on Dr. Robert. Probably does it on his SG. I'm going to do one on Les Paul just to differentiate the tone a little bit so you could hear it clearer on my sound-alike. He doesn't play till they get to the B chord of the 21st measure, then he starts doing fills. And his first fill sounds like this. And then he's into the bridge, and on that bridge, when they're doing the choral-like thing, he just plays a B note, like that through the whole thing. And then in the last part of the first verse, he plays this line. When it goes down to the A, he goes, let's see. So let me play from that B in time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, then in verse 2, he starts on the third measure, and he plays a little tricky line, and the line very slowly sounds like this. On measure, 7, he plays, let's see. To the F sharp, 1, 2, 3, little. On the E7, F sharp, and then there's a second bridge. So verse 2 would sound like this in time. 3, 4, 1, 2. Two, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. To the E. And then you're in the second bridge, and again just B's all the way through the second bridge. And on verse 3, let's see here if I can see verse 3, he plays this. He starts on the second beat of verse 3 and plays that's actually the ending to the F sharp, where he goes. So let me see if I can play verse 3 and all the way out. Or should I do it from the bridge? I'll do that bridge. Let's see. And those are all the little licks and fills that he plays. Charts and tabs at MikePachelli.com will make it even clearer for you to see, and I appreciate your consideration on downloading those. So I put all the parts together in a sound alike, so have a look at this.
Ring my friend, I said you called Dr. Roberts. Day or night, he'll be there anytime at all. Dr. Roberts, Dr. Roberts, you're a new and better man. He helps you to understand. He does everything he can. Dr. Roberts, if you're down, he'll pick you up. Dr. Roberts, take a drink from his special cup. Dr. Roberts, Dr. Roberts, he's a man you must believe, helping anyone in need. No one can succeed like Dr. Roberts. Well, 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 you're feeling fine. Well, 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 he'll make you Dr. Roberts. My friend works for the National Health. Dr. Roberts, don't pay money just to see yourself with Dr. Roberts. Dr. Roberts, you're a new and better man. He helps you to understand. He does everything he can. Dr. Roberts, well, 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 you're feeling fine. Well, 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 he'll make you Dr. Roberts. Ring my friend, I said you called Dr. Roberts. Ring my friend, I said you called Dr. Roberts. Dr. Roberts.
Well, I hope that helped you see how all the parts fit together. I suggest you learn each one, play along with my sound alike, and you'll get it just like the Beatles. If you'd like to drop me a line, do so at MikePachelli.com, and that's where the charts and tabs for all my video lessons are available for you to download. And I appreciate your consideration on that because it helps support my work. So have fun playing this great old song, and until next time, I'm Mike Pachelli. Thanks for hanging out with me.
Dr. Roberts.